Okay, Oak Rovers, this is going to be a video to help you factor quadratics completely. And this is coming from your Algebra Connections book, Chapter 8, and it's section 8.1.4, which is titled Factoring Quadratics Completely. I'm going to be doing problems 36A and 36B, which look a little bit different than your quadratics that you've been doing up to this point. Now, if I look at my first problem, 36A, I have 5x squared plus 15x minus 20. If you look carefully, you'll notice that all three of these terms, the 5x squared, the 15x, and the negative 20, all have a factor of 5. So before I put this problem into my generic rectangle and diamond problem, I'm actually going to factor a 5 out first. When I do that, what I'm going to have is 5 times x squared plus 3x minus 4. And the reason this works is because 5 times x squared is 5x squared. 5 times 3x is 15x, and 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. Now I can put what I have left inside these parentheses into my generic rectangle and diamond problem. So let's do that. Let's put my x squared tiles down here in the bottom left-hand corner, and my unit tiles, which are negative 4, up in my upper right-hand corner. Now these two boxes have to add up to the middle term. And my new middle term is positive 3x. So I'll put the positive 3x down here in the bottom part of my diamond problem. But these two boxes also have to have a product of negative 4 times x squared, which is negative 4x squared. So what two numbers have a product of negative 4x squared and have a sum of 3x? Well, I know that they have to have one positive factor and one negative factor to get a negative product. And I'm going to pick 4x and negative x. And the reason this works is because 4x times negative x is negative 4x squared. But if I add 4x and negative x, I end up getting 3x. So let's put these numbers, the 4x and the negative x, into my generic rectangle. Now let's look at the bottom row. X squared and 4x both have an x in common. So I'll factor an x out. If this dimension's x and my area is x squared, that's going to be an x. So I'll put an x right down there. If this is x, my area is negative x, that'll be negative 1. If this is x and my area is 4x, that'll be positive 4. Now to factor this completely, some of you may be tempted to write just 4x plus 1 times x, or excuse me, x plus 4 and x minus 1. But I can't forget that 5. So when I factor this completely, 5x squared plus 15x minus 20 is going to be 5 times x plus 4 times x minus 1. Let's try another one and see how we do. Now this one I have a 3x cubed minus 6x squared minus 45x. Now this has two things in common. It has both all these terms have an x in it, and they're all factors of 3. All have a factor of 3. So 3x cubed, negative 6x, and 45, all are negative 45, all have a factor of 3. And they all have an x in common, so I'm going to factor this out to look like this. I'll factor a 3x out first. 3x times x squared is 3x squared. 3x times negative 2x is negative 6x squared. 3x times negative 15 is negative 45x. So now I put what's left inside the parentheses into my generic rectangle and diamond problem. The x squared goes there. The negative 15 goes there. This product right here is going to be negative 15x squared. These two have to add up to my new middle term, which is minus 2x. Now if I figure out I have a negative product, so I have to have one positive and one negative factor, and the negative one's got to be bigger, and it's actually got to be bigger by 2, so I'm going to have negative 5x and 3x. So I'll put both of those two numbers into my generic rectangle, and I can factor an x out of this row. If this is x, my area is x squared, then this also has to be x. If this is x, my area is negative 5x, this has to be negative 5. If this is x and my area is 3x, this has to be 3. So to factor this completely, I have an x plus 3 times an x minus 5 times the 3x. And I cannot forget that 3x. That's the biggest mistake that people make when they do this. So when I factor this completely, here it is in the bottom. Let me move that out of your way. 3x cubed minus 6x squared minus 45x is equal to 3x times x plus 3 times x minus 5.